The problem with respectability politics is that it does not work. The invitation, "You can share our power if you look, talk, or act more like us," is not genuine, because people who have power have no interest in giving it up. It's a divisive strategy that singularly undermines the identities and cultures of underrepresented people, and pits them against one another rather than against the dominant group. A few genocides in recent history have proven that the promise is never kept. It doesn't matter how well you can assimilate, if the ideology determining the logic for your oppression is maintained, you will never be given a real place at the table. So ladies, you can be a man and talk sensibly at the grown-ups table, but it won't really change a thing. You'll just be a scab. There are men, like myself, writes Kilbride, who are feminists and believers that true equality for women is paramount to our future. Unfortunately, though, then there are the other men. They are responsible for all misogyny ever.
Okay, so what we have here is an example of two different types of feminists. The first one being the male feminist Kilbride, who sees feminist men as the enlightened good men, and those who are non-feminist as being the evil misogynist. After all, if they weren't misogynist, why wouldn't they be feminists? His solution is to convert them. If you can just show them the errors of their ways, then surely they will convert and become enlightened men, like those good feminist men. But the second type of feminist, the author of this particular article, actually sees all men as misogynists, as we'll see in a little while. All men, according to her, are basically evil sexist pigs. It's kind of like original sin, men are just born that way, and even those more enlightened men who are feminists are still sexist, as we'll see. But let's continue.
There is a passage in Jack Halberstam's Female Masculinity that I resort to time and time again, because when I first read it, the world as I'd lived in it fell into place. Halberstam writes that masculinity becomes legible as masculinity where and when it leaves the white male middle-class body. Arguments about excessive masculinity tend to focus on black bodies, male and female, Latina bodies, or working-class bodies. The way I grew up, as many others do in mobile lower-middle-class families, I moved through many different worlds. Poor, migrant, artist, rich former migrant, white-bread middle-class, upper-middle-class, tertiary educated, private-schooled, homeschooled, unschooled, newly rich. The whole spectrum. The thing I glean from learning how to appear normal in these conflicting worlds is that across every social stratum there is a fairly significant portion of men who are interested in making women feel threatened. That's just the truth. It's only that this desire to dominate women is expressed differently in different places.
Now, I personally would argue that there is a fairly significant portion of the human population who are assholes, who are selfish fucking assholes. And by that I mean both men and women. I don't think it's a thing which is particular to one gender. Yes, there are asshole men out there who mistreat women, just as there are asshole women out there who mistreat men. And there are also men who mistreat men and women who mistreat women. But seen through this particular feminist lens, we have the males wearing the black hats in the villain position, and the females being the good guys who are also the victim. I don't find this particularly healthy for either men nor women. I don't think it's healthy for men to be seen as nothing but villains, and for women to be seen as nothing but their victims. It's hardly empowering to women, and it's hardly a good image to show young boys, or for men to have. It ignores all the good things that men do, and all the good men out there. But let's listen to her describe these evil men's and their way of threatening and oppressing women.
Among the lower classes, in the places I lived as a teenager, for example, men who want to threaten women do it by following you around on the street, by shouting abuse at you, by flashing you, masturbating at you, going home and bashing you, etc. Which is not to say violence doesn't occur in the upper classes, but bear with me. This kind of behavior is viscerally scary, and it's illegal. In many cases, it's the kind of behavior you could report to the police if you felt supported enough. These behaviors are perpetrated by kilbrides, other men.
Don't you just hate it when the lower classes masturbate at you? It's it's very problematic. But I find it interesting that she associates violence against women and sexual violence with working class men. Yeah. So let's hear her opinions on the upper class men.
In the upper classes, though, the behavior that threatens women is largely invisible. It's not even illegal, it's just normal.
So it's important to note here that she uses the words behavior that threatens women. So the things she's about to list are things she considers to be behaviors that threaten women. Let me stress that. Yeah, because it's an interesting list of threatening behaviors. Anyway, let's have a look at them.
The nice white boys who do arts degrees at Melbourne Uni, who are both men and feminists. Demean you simply by not texting after they sleep with you, even though you paid for the cab.
Fucking hell. Not texting you the next day after they sleep with you? What fucking monsters! I mean, these men should be clearly locked up in some deep dark dungeon. Might I suggest that the fact that they don't text you the next day after they sleep with you might have something to do with your personality? No, probably not. It's probably all men are sexist pigs. Yeah, that's probably the more likely explanation, isn't it? Let's look at the next one.
Or by not asking you what you're working on even though they know you're an artist, and you listen to them crap on about their work all the time.
Are you serious? Not asking you about what art project you're working on? Why isn't the government doing something about this? These men should be locked up. This should be front page news. This is monstrous. How can they get away with it? Clearly, this is the best evidence I've ever seen for the patriarchy. Men in university not asking a self-entitled woman what art project she's working on. Fucking hell. Clearly, women are oppressed. What more proof do you need than that?
Or they only ask you to write for their magazines when they need someone to cover some women's issue.
Now, I'll admit it, beyond this one article by this author, I really don't know much about her. I don't know much about her background or her previous work. But if I was to base my opinion on this one particular article, I would have to suggest that there is a extreme likelihood that she can only see the world through a feminist lens, and that she would spend a rather significant amount of time talking about nothing but feminism. So if you take that into account, it would hardly be surprising that someone would ask her to write about that specifically. For example, let's say you knew someone who was obsessed with football. Whenever they watched TV, they would only watch football. They would buy the newspaper just to read about football. On the weekends, they'd go to football. When they weren't at the football, they'd be playing football. The only thing they ever fucking talked about was football. Yeah, unfortunately, I've known people like this, and they can be fucking annoying. But if you knew someone like this, and you had a magazine, and you needed an article on football, it would be reasonable to ask them to write that article. If, however, you wanted an article on Norwegian politics or 17th century medical techniques in Outer Mongolia, you probably wouldn't ask them to write that article. because that's probably not their area of expertise. So yeah, I think this particular young feminist talks about nothing but feminism, and then when people ask her to write about feminism, she complains that that's all they ask her to write about. But thinking back to a previous point about people not texting her the next day after sex, I think we might have found the reason why that might happen. I think people might be avoiding her because all she talks about is feminism. Let's continue.
Or they give themselves, boss, job titles on projects you're sharing the labor on, or they take credit for your insights.
Yes, because only men do that to women, right? Yeah, sure. Next.
Or they tell you stories about their crazy exes, it could be you. Or they only talk to you about their girl problems because to them you're a free counselor.
But hold on a second. Aren't we constantly told by feminists that masculinity is toxic because we don't express our feelings or talk about our feelings? And oh, jeez. Yeah, and for the record, both men and women do this. Anyone who has female friends know that they often talk to you about their relationship problems or issues or other things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Well, unless you're a man doing it to a woman, apparently, in which case somehow it's sexist behaviour. I'm not exactly sure how, but but apparently it is. Everything's sexist, remember? Everything.
Or they devise entire undergraduate courses that do not include female thinkers at all. Or they attend their friend's gender studies lecture one time and then spend the rest of their lives schooling you on feminism.
So clearly the problem here is that these misogynistic upper class men just haven't drank the right amount of poison Kool-Aid. If only they would drink it by the bucket load like our author here, then maybe they would be more willing to understand the world through the feminist lens. So problematic. What are we to do?
These are high social strata problems. And it is in this liberal, progressive slice of the world that I believe misogyny's roots are grounded. At least with the plebs back home you can see their violence, and when it's visible you can try to navigate it.
So, she is actually comparing not getting a text message the next day after sleeping with someone, or someone not asking her about her art project. She's actually comparing that to violence. Yeah. Let's continue.